What is going on, everyone? I'm Ducky, and in this commentary we're going to focus on the origins of the first-person shooter genre of video game, how the industry has evolved and where the zombies will go with the latest revolution of three-directional advanced movement. Many believe Call of Duty has become stale, and Advanced Warfare's introduction of exo movement and using the futuristic setting to cater for this may have been seen as a step or boost jump in the right direction to revive the franchise. For 10 years we ran with boots on the ground, jumping like normal modern humans, but at COD 11 that all changed. Advanced Warfare was the first Call of Duty game to do this, giving an extra dimension, therefore more area for players to enjoy and create tactics for. This, however, as a new introduction, was not without its problems. It looks like Treyarch, the team developing the upcoming Call of Duty 12 Black Ops 3, have paid close attention to the faults of this system. The team quite obviously agrees that the advanced three-dimensional movements, or 3D movements, is the way forward, but there needs to be some restraints and restrictions to make gameplay controlled to the classic level we love, but encourage the game's freshness at the same time. But why is there a need for this freshness in zombies? We're not bored of it yet. People have played custom zombies for ages in between these games. We've gone back to the old zombie maps, done challenges, played through them again, mixed things up in different ways to reshape the game, and we've always enjoyed it. But the day that we do get bored of it may come soon. Some of us may have seen or played exo zombies involving the advanced movements, but many say it ruins the classic experience. Let's look at some examples of the need for an extra dimension or angles of the genre that were solved in history and still apply today. What is believed to be the original first-person shooter game developed in 1973 by Steve Colley was Maze War. This game involved moving through a maze and exploring through the use of 4 directions: forward, left, right and back. 90-degree difference between every direction then. Every move the player made was from square to square, known as tiled-based movement system. The shooter aspect of the game comes in where shooting players would earn points for oneself and being hit would make one lose their points. For the first time in gaming history, players had a 3D perspective in first person of a level. This game, as a side note, was the first to represent online players as organic beings in their third person model. This game also featured the first ever minimap seen widely in video games today. This style map had been seen in gaming history before, but never as a secondary use to a first person view. What's more is the game featured a custom map creator, which has never fully been in COD, but we have had mod tools, but not that advanced ones in more recent titles. Maybe Black Ops 3 will include a map editor to increase the value of the community aspect of the game. This was also the first fully multiplayer game. Before this game was developed, players played on the same system or computer using separate controls and video. But this game allowed separate computers to play with one another on the same server and level. This game also had what we would now refer to as a codcaster mode, where players could be on the server and spectate games without having to be involved in playing. This game was also a game that allowed chatting between online players. Later versions of Maze War allowed 8 players on a client server, compared to the earlier requiring a cable between the maximum of 2 players' machines. 4 years after the game's first development, it began to become less exciting than it was at first, so a third dimension was added, allowing players to climb between 4 floors. 10 years later, a game titled MIDI Maze was released. Developed by Zamp Software FX, the game was largely based on the original FPS Maze War. After that became stale as a first-person shooter. The game actually allowed the player to move in any direction in 360 degrees, adding more control, depth and freedom to the original Maze shooter. MIDI, or MIDI, was simply the network architecture. The game was played locally on a ring network. One computer's MIDI output would be cabled to the next MIDI in, forming a ring of gaming stations. The ring network has data travelling in a single direction through all of the computers connected, keeping data transfer fast, allowing up to 16 players to be connected. In the first person view of MIDI Maze, players had a crosshair to aim and fire bullets that appear as small balls at other players, who appeared as smiley faces. It would take 3 bullets to kill, where all players had the same fire rate, weapon and damage. This in some ways made the game very balanced, but really limited choice and made a single play style succeed, rather than making some players fast, others tactical and others slow and defensive, therefore not endorsing many strategies for all sorts of players. Later the game was released in the early 90s with the title MIDI Maze Plus. With improvements such as a compass, this feature has been discussed on Jimmy Zielinski's Twitter, the official Twitter account of the lead of development for the Zombies mode appearing in Black Ops 3. Already in the history of first-person shooter games, we have seen improvements of a maze-based shooter that keep the simple game fresh while still maintaining the core gameplay mechanics. At a date close to this, MIDI Maze 2 was released as well. WinMaze was developed where the MIDI network system was replaced with players on the Windows OS. Up to 32 players could now play on a local area network or LAN. This means players would have to be in the same establishment to play together. The Game Boy version of the game was released in 1991, titled Faceball 2000, with up to 16 players, and the computer-based enemies each had their own personal AI. This is probably better than focusing on fish AI, Mr. Rubin. But would zombies be better where each zombie moved uniquely with their own strategy? In 1992, a split-screen version of the game was also released. The year of 1991 also saw the release of Hover Tank 3D, similar to the Maze-styled first-person shooter games, but featured in-vehicle combat. Could Call of Duty become fresh again by introducing vehicles into multiplayer like Battlefield and what they had with tanks in World at War? Could this possibly be working in zombies in some way too in Black Ops 3? Late in the year of 1991, Catacomb 3D introduced the player's hand and weapon into the first-person shooter genre of video game, making the game more realistic and the player feels like they are simulating the character in the game more. For many, the true original first-person shooter was Wolfenstein 3D. The game's release in 1992 was an instant success. Based off the 1981 third-person platformer video game Castle Wolfenstein, Wolfenstein 3D provides players with the role of an Allied spy trying to escape a Nazi German prison and fighting through the guards in the process. One could say that the inspiration for World at War Zombies was collected from W3D as players fight Nazis, soldiers and dogs. The game allowed players to collect ammo, health and new weapons found around the map. When the player clears through the guards to an elevator, they complete the level and progress to a more difficult one, similar to Zombies, Waves and Rounds. Many treasures that would increase the player's score can be found hidden in areas of the map, similar to Zombies Easter eggs. Each episode in Wolfenstein 3D had a different boss found on its final level, and behaved differently to standard guards, a similar comparison noted within Zombies. After defeating a boss and escaping, the boss's death cam will be played, which literally replays the boss's death from the player. COD later used a kill cam to show deaths of players and allow players to strive to counter the tactics from opponents that cause their death. This feature adds extra replay value to the game because players will continuously work to counter each other's tactics. Therefore, there will be a never end to the loop cycle. Doom, published by Activision, the publishers of Call of Duty themselves, is known for creating the video game subculture, with 10 million people having played the game within 2 years of release. The game from 1993 really popularised the first-person shooter franchise. The game was so popular with immersive 3D graphics, networked multiplayer and mod support similar to World at War's large modding community. Doom also created more of an atmosphere than previous first-person shooters. From then on, FPS games continued to expand in features. Vertical aiming was introduced in Raven Software's Heretic, as well as storing items in an inventory not largely seen in Zombies, and gibs or body parts flying off enemies when shot. Bungie then released Marathon, which featured a free-look, dual-wield and dual-function weapons, friendly AI, versatile multiplayer game modes, and a huge increase on storytelling compared to the previous FPS games. LucasArts then released Star Wars Dark Forces in 1995, which introduced the crouch feature. In fact, without all of these introductions, Call of Duty would be nothing like it is today. During their 3-year development cycle, Treyarch have tested the feel of the game after removing certain features and have understood how crucial they are. In 1994, we saw the introduction of free roam in an open environment in the FPS genre from Geograph Seal, also known as Jumping Flash. Sprites are flat character models seen in a 2D way head-on to the player. The last in first-person shooter history as a great game to use these was Duke Nukem 3D, released in 1996 by Apogee. Quake, the successor to Doom, was released in 1996, with many deathmatch-style game modes in a very fast-paced manner, with instant respawns, multiple heightened and secret areas unlocked by interacting with the game. So far in Zombies, we have seen little buttons that are pressed or bought to open a door, other than on the door itself. Quake was very appealing because it had advanced movements that made it stand out from the crowd of first-person shooter games at the time, as the player could move in ways they had not before. The game was also balanced but gave a slight advantage to those who learned the maps and found the secret spots with powerful weapons and vantage points. Quake as a fast-paced action game inspired speedruns of hardcore fans, similar to what some fans of Zombies do today, such as a Round 50 speedrun. Quake also had expansion packs similar to COD's, with the first released about a year after the game's first release and the second a month later, each coming with an extra mission and more enemies not seen before. As the game was popular and had 3D graphics considered high-end at the time of release, Quake increased the market size for graphics cards. The better the card, the nicer the game looks, and the better it runs. GoldenEye 007, developed by Rare, featured stealth missions in the atmospheric single-player and well-designed multiplayer levels. This game hosted the introduction of headshots, sniper rifles, position-dependent hit reaction animations, penalties for civilian killed, and precise aiming at a spot on screen. Medal of Honor was a World War II shooter series lasting over 10 years, with new installments most years. Shortly into this series, the first Call of Duty came about as well. All were similar in style with World War II warfare. So we have seen many innovations to keep first-person shooters fresh over the years and top what the competition does, but the community in general prefer Black Ops 2 over the two newer COD games with regards to multiplayer, because everything is the right speed and every confrontation is in frame opposed to Advanced Warfare's players boosting up high then shooting down on everyone in the open. So all Treyarch need to do is to take what they did with Black Ops 2 and add more options to flow through gameplay. But what about zombies? The purpose of introducing advanced movements were to counterattack those in gunfights, for example boosting sideways into cover when in the open and under fire. But is this really needed in Zombies? Not really. Players prefer the open because they can train more and see all of the zombies running to them from a distance. The only instances we would need advanced movements is to escape being cornered or something similar. The knee slide would be good to make a quick getaway opposed to dolphin diving to a station position. Boosting can sometimes ruin the fun. I would prefer to have no enhanced abilities in Zombies, as well as all the zombies themselves having no enhancements that allow them to move in an advanced way. Thanks for watching today's video. Subscribe for more. Head down below the video and let me know if you enjoyed by liking and commenting. Also tell me what sort of movement you would like to see in Black Ops 3 Zombies. I will see you all next time.